Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we do a little bit of change. We actually set the UI sizes, so we're working with a very small portrait size. We lay down just a little bit of text at the top here, so the score, coin score, and modifier score, and we also stop our Pingu from running in the beginning. So right now he is stalling right there. You can actually tell because he's still running, but we have the same mechanic as in Subway Surfer where the game doesn't really start as soon as you enter the scene. We wait until you actually press on anywhere really. So once you tap, it now goes. So basically today we work a lot with the flow of the game, and we're just trying to get it there, trying to get it to another stage where we have a little bit more control over the whole flow. So guys, without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so before we do anything menu related, we always have to determine what kind of size are we actually pushing this to. So in this game, we want to be pushing this to portrait phone. We gotta make sure before doing anything UI related that we actually go ahead, go under file, choose of course, your device you're trying to build to. In my case, that's Android. Switch to platform, and then I'm going to go under the game tab. So pull out the game tab. If you don't have it, it's right here, Control 2. And then change the free aspect to something that makes a little bit more sense to you. So I always take the smallest portrait size I can actually have. And does that look like a portrait to you? It doesn't to me. What is this? Okay, there it is. Some problems with Unity 2017, some bugs are still there. So if you see like some weird scaling, use this button over here, make sure you scroll up, scroll down until it actually looks like a portrait game. So the reason I'm actually taking the smallest size is because I want to make sure that my UI fits on the smallest. That's always my problem. If I was to make a UI, the problem I usually have if I build for bigger devices, sometimes when you try to crush it down into a really small size, then the buttons are going to overlap, and that's just not going to work. So if we build for the smallest one, we have no problem just extending the game screen to something bigger if we ever need to. And that is of course using all the anchor point of the new UI system. So let me go back under portrait, and we're going to start creating a flow today. So simple flow, I'm going to stop my character from moving or doing anything until we actually tap on the screen. So this should be quite simple. Let's go right here under our game scene, where right here we're going to create a empty game object. This one's going to be the game manager, the famous game manager that we use in every single tutorial thus far. And what I like to do is have some kind of script that controls the whole scene, basically. I call this one Game Manager. And for some reason, I got some weird icons going on. Let me just remove that. And let's try again. So, can we create a Game Manager, a new script? Yep. Okay, so my Unity is definitely bugged at the moment. We're just going to assume that nothing happened and that this gear icon is not there. Let's just assume it's a normal script. I might have to reset in a moment, but let's keep on going, basically. Right, so with that game manager, it is something I'd like to access from pretty much anywhere. So I'll make sure to create a public static instance, just like we've done for the what was already the mobile input. So public static instance set get is going to be a private set, and we're going to set it down here. So private void awake. Well, technically right now it is not a private set, but we're only going to be setting it here. We could go ahead and create a whole structure, like a whole template script to actually do all our singleton like this, but it is not worth it in our case, since we know we're not going to spawn this. We're not stupid. We're working by ourselves on our side. We're not working with a group of people. Okay, so now that we have our game manager, let's actually create some boolean that is going to know whether or not the game is started. So let's do private boolean is game started. Having a little bit of problem with my typing today, but that's fine. Next up, let's create a small section here for the UI and the UI fields. So I'm going to be changing a couple of things during the game. The score, the coin text, the score text, the coin text. I'd like to actually add something that isn't inside of the Subway Surfer, maybe a multiplier, because as the game progresses, you always go faster and faster. I'd like to keep track of that speed through a multiplier, score multiplier basically. So we'll do a public text. Now you're going to realize that we do not have the text namespace in here. We don't have the text, class, not namespace. So to include the namespace in which text is contained, we're going to double click on this, just select the whole thing. Then if you're in Visual Studio, click Control and then dot. This is going to pop up a menu that says you want to be using Unity Engine.ui. Of course you want it, and you're going to go ahead and just do that. I'm also going to be using a coin text and also a modifier text. Again, I put them all on the same exact line, but you can split them if you want. And if you didn't catch that, by the way, we did a using Unity Engine.ui at the top. That's what our control and dot did for us. I'm also going to go back right here. I forgot one of those fields, the player motor field, which is just going to keep track of our player, just have a reference to our player in case we need to actually do something on it. And now that we have our player motor, let's go back in the UI. I know I'm jumping around quite a lot, but I'm just trying to remember in which order I did it originally. Let's go ahead and create some more floats. A private float for the score, a private float for the coin score, and a private float for the modifier score. And just like this, we should be able to update this every time we need to. I'm gonna go ahead and make some public function for those. So public void, let's do update scores. So let's update everything all at once. If the score changes, we're gonna say score text dot text is gonna be equal to score toString. Then coin text dot text is gonna be equal to coin score toString. And finally, modifier text dot text is gonna be equal to modifier score toString. So this is a public function we can be calling from outside. We gotta be setting those first. So we're gonna make sure that we actually set our values before we call this. This is just like, once the values are there, let's go ahead and update everything on the screen. Okay, so as soon as the game starts, we're going to update all the text on the screen. Now, what I'd like to do at this point, just like in the Subway Surfer game, the game doesn't start right away as soon as you enter the scene. It actually waits until you tap on the screen, anywhere really, as long as it's not on a menu piece. So if we don't tap on anything, we should just be standing there with our Pingu looking at something or just chilling, because that's what Pingu do. Else, if we do tap on the screen at one point, we can go ahead and start the game. Now, we're going to have to tell that to our player motor. So basically, if we head back really quickly in our player motor, we're just going to stay here for like, maybe like a good minute. We're going to go at the very top, right about here. I call that functionality. Actually, you know what? That's too broad. I'm just going to leave it empty like that. We're going to have a private boolean that is going to say is in game or is game started. And it's going to be equal to false by default. Now, if we just head down inside of the update, right before anything, we're going to say if the game is not started. So notice this little exclamation sign here means not. If it is not started, then let's do a return. So we don't run any of this code. We just forget about everything. Our Pingu is just going to stay there and wait, basically. So this has to be turned on. This boolean has to be turned on before anything happens. Now to turn on this value from outside, this one is private right now, of course. You could put it on public, but I don't really like that. We're going to go through a function instead. To turn it on, we're going to create a public function. So I'm just going to collapse these. We're going to have a public function. So public void that is going to basically start game. Or, start running would be a little bit better in that case. And when you do start running, we're going to say is game started is equal to true. And then we might want to be doing some other stuff, just like setting the speed and, other things. So that is why I like to collapse it in the function. So if we ever need to add some more stuff inside of here, just like, swap the camera over or do something else, then we can do it inside of the start running. And that's actually quite a good idea. We should actually swap the camera. So at first it looks at something, and then once we start running, then it can go ahead and just go back to the original camera we have. But until we have everything working and tested, we're going to leave it like that. So if we just have a look at our flow right now, we press on play. Do we get any problem? We do actually get a problem, and that is because update score has some null reference. Totally normal, we do a update score at the beginning and we don't have any of these scores right there. So we can go ahead and start creating a UI. But before making that step, let's actually test out what we just done right here. So I'm going to comment out update score. You don't have to do this. It's just on my end so we can actually test out if what we did worked before we move on a little bit further. So I cleared my console. I'm going to press play again. And as you can tell, my Pingu, he doesn't move. He's stuck in the running animation for now. That's something to fix, of course, but he doesn't move. And we can't get him to move at all because we don't have any condition that checks whether we're tapping on the screen or not. That is what we're missing. Let's head over to the game manager. And inside of the game manager, we're going to say if mobile input dot instance dot tap and is game started is equal to false. So make sure you put the exclamation right here. If that is the case, then is game started is going to be equal to true. And that's pretty much all we need right now. Okay, so at this point, we press play on the game. Should be able to tap to get this guy moving. So he's not moving, I'm tapping. And he's still not moving. Why is this? We're going to need to do a little bit of debugging again. So, oh wait, no, that's quite obvious actually. We never called the good function, so I got confused here because it's called isGameStarted. And this one over here is isGameStarted as well. So let's do isRunning instead. And down in our start running, we're going to say isRunning is equal to true. Sorry guys, we're moving around a lot. And okay, so what we're doing right here is we're toggling on this boolean, but this boolean is not the one inside of the player motor. So we need to actually get the player motor and then call the function start running. There it is. Okay, now we're gonna get another problem which is going to say, well, motor is not defined. You don't assign motor to anything anywhere, which is totally true, which is why we are going to go inside of the motor, the awake, and we're going to say motor. It's going to be equal to game object dot find. We're going to look for an object that has the tag. Let's actually do find object with tag player, and then we can do a get component on it. Oops, get component. Can we actually do a get component? Oh, sorry, there's an S over here, so don't actually put the S here. It is a find game object with tag singular. Then you can do a get component type of player motor. To make sure that this works, we need our object to have the player tag. So again, let's go back in the game, select our player, make sure that our tag is player. Let's also make sure we hit apply so it affects it everywhere else in case we have other scenes. And just like this, we should have our flow running. So clear the console. Oh, we do have a problem right here. isGameStart does not exist in the current context. So in the update of the player motor, I forgot to change the name to isRunning. So update is now isRunning instead of isGameStarted because we don't have that that boolean anymore. Okay, so technically everything should be good now. We should be able to get the Pingu running by tapping on the screen. And here he goes. So that did work. All the controls still work. We jump, fall, and the flow is pretty much back. So for this update score to work at the moment, without the real value, all we really need is to have references, because we do get a problem when we do try to change text. Text has no reference, it just tries to change something in the void, and it doesn't work. So let's go ahead and create a very, very small UI. This is not an episode where we're gonna lay down any UI. This is just an episode where we're just setting up like a little base so we can build on it later on. So I'm going to right click right in the hierarchy, create a new canvas. Where's the canvas at? Oh, under UI. And you know what? I'll create a panel instead. So this way I have a canvas and then a panel. Really important before you do anything is to choose which kind of scaling you want to be using for your game. I like to use the scale with screen size and then just put the resolution that I'm working on right now. So I'm working with 3248. So 32 in X and 48. or I meant 320 and 480. With these, I can now start scaling my stuff inside of my panel, and it just, it changes with the screen size. So if I did something like this, and I were to scale up, it would actually look the same on both screens. Actually, the same ratio. Okay, so let's go ahead and just take this panel. I'll put it at the very top left, and we are going to just put the scale back on 1, and then just say modify the height to 200 or 100. Inside of that panel, I'll call this scores, and I'll just create some more UI text in it. So that's going to be the score in general, that's going to be the coin score, and that's going to be the modifier score just beneath it. So modifier score. I'm going to go ahead and add a vertical layout group to this, so they're all going to stack one on top of each other like this, and for some reason we can't get these ones to display beneath it. So I went ahead and I reset my Unity. Right now it's rebooting. I've shut down the Unity completely and I've booted it again. That is basically just a bug with the new version. It should not be like that all the time, but right now we have to deal with some little bugs since we're trying to use the newest version of Unity. Okay, so we got score. Let's change that to score for now. In all caps. Doesn't really matter what you put in here, it's going to be changed on the first frame of the game. But I'm just going to type it out here so we can actually see what it is while we are in the inspector. So I'll take these three, do a mass modifying, put that in the center, say, and I'll just center it more. Change the font color to white as for now. Eventually we're going to grab a font online, like a royalty font, and actually put it. But right now all we have to work with is the Arial font. So having this done, we're going to go back in the game manager and then start drag and dropping the score in here, the coin score in here, and then the modifier. And if we now press play on the game, everything should be set on 0 and we can start running. And that is actually where I'm going to leave off this episode, guys. I know it's a little bit weird we're leaving off like that. We don't really have any more result other than just some kind of flow going on, but the flow is going to be something we build on over time. Right now, just tell yourself that we did manage to get our Pingu to stop right here at the beginning. He's not actually running, and then once we press on the button, then he goes ahead and he runs. Next episode, we're also going to make our Pingu slide and just fix like a little bit of the flow. So at the beginning, we're going to stop him like on the idle position instead of having this. So look forward to this. Until then, click the video on the screen right now to head over to the next episode. Check out the Patreon page, check out the Discord where we are really active and we try to support you guys there with all your questions. And I will be catching you in the next episode.